Hey, it's Aaron, Metal Theologian. Yeah, we're winging it today. Look at this, I'm off today. People are out, so there's still light outside. You see that shit? That's really rare in my videos if you've been watching for a while. I usually film after midnight, so. Yeah, so we got a few records here. The other thing I've been thinking about is there's certain things that people say to record collectors. I was thinking about doing this like a big topic or something like that, but I'll keep it kind of casual just because I can only think of two. But like, sometimes people will say things that are to you that are really dumb, and it's not that they're dumb or like not well intentioned or anything like that. It's just that there's something they fundamentally don't get. Especially if we listen to some 45s, talk about the shit. I'll show a few other things that have come around. Here's one to show actually. I want to be sure I hype this one. Yeah, this is another band. I've kind of been making a big deal about a lot of bands I've seen locally over the last few months, and this was one that was sort of hanging out there for me. That's Void. So they actually have a new LP coming before too long. And these guys are from New Orleans, so, you know, deep south, which I appreciate, you know. Song here in Charleston. Yeah, it's just a really good, it's a solid heavy metal record. Here, I'll put it on for a minute so y'all can get a little taste of it. Yeah, it's a good band. I mean, they don't have like something immediately identifiable to them. Like the way you listen to like an Interceptor record and you go, yeah, these guys owe a lot to Venom. This is what we were listening to, by the way. I don't have the sleeve on this guy, but it's the Mars single. Which I actually had to pull it out because Alan, who does have the sleeve, showed it last Friday on Metallurgy. That's the way it goes. Yeah. It's funny, I've been listening to a little more metal than last time I made a video, but still some jazz mixed in here, you know? And specifically hard bop is what I've been gravitating towards, too, so there's the thing. I think when they make an effort with a color like this, it's kind of cool, you know? I'm not going to pay an extra $5 for colored vinyl, generally speaking, especially if it's just an ordinary color. But if it looks cool, I'll, you know, it's stating the obvious as far as I'm concerned, you know? Alright, we'll let this lead in for a minute. Yeah, here's another one that I pulled out, actually. I hadn't busted out in a while. It's a record I really want to like by a band called Bloke. Because they're from Argentina, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it looks like this is 84. And I'm pretty sure this is from Argentina. If I'm wrong, you can tell me in the comments, but I want to sit here and try to figure out all the Spanish here live on the air. Yeah. Anyway, Bloke. It's really not a bad record, but I play this and I go, yeah, this is kind of cool. It's not like a face melter, right? I listen to it, it's kind of cool. And then, you know, when it's over, I kind of don't really remember very much about it. You know, it's one of those. It's funny, on a 1 to 10 scale, I've spent a lot of time talking about how a 7 out of 10 is like really good. That's like a solid record you're going to really enjoy and it's totally worth having. By that metric, this one's probably about a 6. You know, there's nothing about this record that makes me mad. But, you know, it just sort of feels like there's something missing. You know what I mean? There's just, well, and I think I know exactly what's missing. I think it's songs. You know? They're just not that great. This band actually has been in rotation around here a little bit. This is a reissue. I don't have an original of this, but this band from Bosnia and Herzegovina called Bombarder. Yeah. Bez Milosti, I think that's how you pronounce the album title. I don't know. This is the only one I have. I actually have another one coming in the mail because I've been listening to this one so much. But this one is really kind of grubby. The label says speed metal. I don't know if it's really speed metal, but, you know, I sort of take issue with some of these designations anyway, you know. I mean, like, the idea of, like, the difference between speed metal and thrash metal, I still think that's in y'all's heads, you know. And a lot of these sort of, yeah. Anyway, we don't have to go down the, you know, the subgenre designations rabbit hole in every video. But this is a really cool one. It sounds, you know, it's speedy, right? And it sounds grubby and kind of rough and, you know, passionate, you know, and that's the number one thing. This one isn't 100% with the songs either. The songs are decent enough to hold my attention, right? And this is, I mean, honestly, this is the sort of thing where I try to like go looking for records from these sort of faraway places, where there aren't a whole lot of records made necessarily here, Argentina, just sort of see what's their take on this, based on the shit they're going through. And, you listen to this, and someone tells you there was a pretty big civil war there in the years, like, before they made this thing, and it's not really much of a shock, it kind of tracks based on how the record sounds, and, what can I say, man? I mean, that's just an interesting record to me, right? Yeah, here's another one, actually. They talked about this on, on Metallurgy last time. I feel like you're talking about Metallurgy, but I had to listen to this Celtic Frost record, Monotheist, which I got when it came out. This record is pretty different from all the earlier Celtic Frost records. There's one that I don't have, the one after Cold Lake, that was sort of the end of their initial run. I don't even remember what it's called, Vanity Nemesis, I want to say. This record is definitely not going to sound like Cold Lake. You can kind of tell based on the cover. But it's even doomier than their early stuff, like the Morbid Tales, Emperor's Return, Two Megatherion, that whole run in there. It has sort of the epicness and kind of the grandiosity that you hear on Two Megatherion, but it's expressed in different ways. And I think most is because of a certain sort of industrial influence. I would not call this an industrial metal record, but it does sound like they've been listening to some of that, and some of that sort of like just that noise aesthetic. You know what I mean? Not like noise like static from a radio or something like that, like the shit that like some of these guys deliberately incorporate in order to like be noise bands, It's not like that, but just sort of like the pounding, like sometimes the throbbing bass and some of the shit and that sort of thing. They're taking some cues from there too, And yeah, there are just so many great songs on this, man. Ein Elohim, Totengott, a dying god coming into human flesh. Yeah. There's a one where there's this line about, God, why have you forsaken me, which is Psalm 22, if you know your Bible. This is another, I actually pulled this one out for sort of a funny cover, but like I kind of had to, on last Friday, but I had to kind of cut a bunch of them because there's too many. But I think this cover is kind of hilarious. Just not as overtly so as otherwise. So this one stayed out because I really like Accuser. This is good, isn't it? This is Void. I just want to be sure I don't like suppress all the hype here if I'm talking about other bands. It's a cool cover too, as far as I'm concerned. It kind of has that late '80s vibe without looking like a ripoff. Yeah. Anyway, this one's definitely a fast one. This one's definitely has that thrashy thing going. I really like the singer on this band too. Like he has a certain. Like, a lot of these guys have gravel in their voices, but this guy has, like, a specific kind of gravel. I don't know if it's different stone or something, But, it makes him sound like, sort of between just, like, a growly singer and, like, I don't know, man. Something with, like, a higher voice, you know what I mean? Because it's not necessarily, like, particularly high-pitched compared with anyone else, but he just sort of has this weird sort of sound. Actually, if this singer reminds you of anyone, it's probably Pusshead, actually, from those Septic Death records. That's kind of what I was trying to put my finger on. As far as, like, sort of the weird intonation and that sort of thing. Except Pusshead was a native English speaker, and this guy is clearly not. Just a three-piece on this one. I don't know a whole lot about their history, so... But this is an Atom Age pressing, so... Let's show that off. Look at that. There it is. You don't see a lot of these in the U.S., so... It sucks that it's gotten so much more expensive to get things from overseas, too. Because a lot of this stuff, you spend an extra 10 or 15 bucks to get something shipped over the Atlantic, but there's no big deal. When you're looking at like 25, 30 euros, it's a lot less enticing. You kind of need a little bit more from a record than just that. So, I don't know. That's my little lament. Yeah, what the hell, man? This is a jazz one that probably, I don't know if anyone's shown this one before. By CeeLo and the Meyer Formation, Mr. Dynamites. Actually, I don't even remember why I got this, because it looked interesting, fundamentally. It's 4-piece. It's a Euro jazz, and it has some really good grooves without being like funky. It's not a hard bop record, but it scratches a similar itch in that it doesn't go super far out on limbs. You know what I mean? It just sort of it just steps beyond hard bop in that it's sort of it doesn't just follow the changes. You know what I mean? It's not sort of as I don't want to say easy because it's not like I can play that kind of shit. But there's a certain sort of formula to hard bop. You know what I mean? It's like you have a song, you know the changes. You improvise on top of the changes, you're done. I mean, that's why with these guys who are like, admittedly, tremendous musicians, right? Like, Jackie McLean comes to mind. I mean, John Coltrane and Miles Davis both, you know what I mean? But these guys that have heroin habits, and they go to Prestige Records and go inside and like cut a record real quick and walk out with cash in hand to score with, you know? I mean, the reason they could do that is because the shit was formulaic in that sort of a sense, you know what I mean? Doesn't mean that shit wasn't interesting to listen to, even when they were on heroin some of the time, you know? Although Jackie was a lot better when he cleaned up. So this doesn't sound like that. And there are also a couple little tells. There's a little bit later too. They do a cover of With Little Help From My Friends, which honestly I hate. I hate hearing jazz groups doing Beatles songs, but I understand that like that's kind of a big part of it. You know what I mean? Like when they're doing the same sort of thing in the 50s with songs that are like, you know, hits from the 30s and the 40s, they're not as familiar to me as the Beatles, you know what I mean? So it's easy to sort of let it slide or not really notice, you know? But something like this where it's really, you know, everyone knows that song, it's like, hope you had fun playing it, you know? But even there, they were considered enough to put it at the very end of the album so it wouldn't bug you. You can just skip over it if you don't want to deal with it. Just end the record early. Mr. Dynamites, part 1 through 3, that's really the kind of the best part. That's where these guys really sort of sound like their own thing as a band, and they really sort of shine. So, yeah, CeeLo and Meyer Foundation. I don't know if it's CeeLo, I don't know where the guy's from. His first name is Dieter. So there you go, it's probably German, so CeeLo. Yeah, and I guess sticking with the jazz for one more minute. Here's one I've been listening to a little bit. I actually didn't realize I had this until I went looking to see what I had in my Sonny Clark section, and this Leapin' and Lopin' one, it leapt out at me, you might say. This is a hard bop record, and it's a very cool record. Sonny Clark, I don't know when he started, maybe he broke some new ground, but by the time this record came out, I mean, what was this? This would have been probably first half of the 60s. You know, there was the groove that was settled into at that point, you know what I mean? And it's a fun record, it's a cool record. It's a record you can sit and really listen to, and it's a record you can sort of have on in the background while you're cooking or hanging out with people or something like that. And, you know, I gotta give it respect for that too. You know, it fits into a lot of different sorts of moods, you know what I mean? But if you don't have Cookin' and Relaxin' by Miles Davis, you should get those first. With the classic quintet, with the first classic quintet with Coltrane, Red Garland, I want to say Paul Chambers, and Philly Joe Jones. I could be wrong about that. You can double check. Alright, so anyway, I was just talking about an Argentine record that's kind of a bummer a little bit, right? Part of why that Bloke record kind of bums me out a little bit is because then there's shit like this from Argentina, man. And I pulled this out after listening to Bloke earlier today, and this is fucking fantastic. It's a really cool record. Again, it's a hard one to find in the US. This one came from Argentina, and I bit the bullet on the shipping, you know? But it has this triple fold out and shit too, and like with this big booklet. I don't know, I'm kind of afraid to do it because I don't want the fucking thing to just fall all over the place. I mean, I'm generally not the biggest fan of these sorts of booklets, but when they're really going all out with this sort of thing, it's like, well, you know, okay. I'm not going to get mad about that. I feel like I've been talking about being mad a lot this video. Alright, so speaking of being mad, as a collector now, you know, sometimes, you know, you'll be like, you're talking with someone, you'll say, oh, what kind of, the subject of music comes up, especially if someone finds out you collect. Like, oh, what kind of music are you into? And they'll go, oh, I like all kinds of music. Now, when someone says to me, I like all kinds of music like that, that tells me they're not really into music. Because, yeah, I mean, if you like music and you come to appreciate it for a while, like for just what it is, like on a sort of metaphysical level, it's easy to like all kinds of music. I mean, every just video just about it feels like I come out here and say, yeah, here's a record I used to think sucked, but now I really like it, you know? And, you know, I don't collect country records. You know, I know this much about country, but if I'm at your house and you're listening to like a Sturgill Simpson record, actually it's more like outlaw shit, I suppose, but, you know, unless something really awful, it's not gonna like chase me away or anything, it's fine, you know? I was just checking out some blues shit again recently to see if I liked it more now, and now it's like, you know, it's still really not for me, but I like those records, they're good records. It's just not where I focus, you know what I mean? So like if you ask a collector, what kind of music are you into? They might say, well, I like a lot of shit, but I really collect metal, I really collect jazz, I really collect, you know, like 70s, like hard rock, especially from Germany and South America. That's kind of what I say, you know, and then I had some reggae too, and a few other things here and there, but like, you know, there's certain things that I'm really sort of focused on. That doesn't mean I don't like, I'm trying to think of something other than country and blues, so they're kind of the two big holes for me, you know. It doesn't mean I don't like big band shit, okay? I actually do, like Glenn Miller and fucking the Dorsey Brothers. I can totally hang with that shit. Benny Goodman. But when I think about like music that I love, it's not all kinds equally. It's like there are a few specific things that come out, you know what I mean? But there's things I had to look for longer or whatever else. And so, yeah, so I feel like, oh yeah, I like all kinds of music. It's a little bit of a lame answer. Oh, by the way, I was going to hype these too, I forgot. I forgot I had these too. I was looking for soul jazz shit, so I pulled out a couple of Shirley Scott records. Now, I want to make a point of mentioning this because these tend to be cheap. And I think it's mostly because she's a woman, you know? Usually when you see women on jazz records, they're the singers. And I tend to not go for it. I generally don't like jazz vocals generally because I feel like the band, which is what I'm in it for, like steps back and like lets the singer take center stage, which, you know, makes sense from like a professional like club setup or whatever. But Shirley Scott plays, you know, fantastic like soul jazz organ. This is just her with a bass player and a drummer, which I like, by the way. I like when they also have a bass and like the organ isn't just playing the bass on the pedals. There are lots of great records like that, but a lot of soul jazz records don't have bass, they just have the organ. So, yeah, I think I like this one even more, actually, this live one. Which I think has Stanley Turrentine on it, because I think she was married to him at one point. Yeah, Stanley Turrentine on this one, and then bass and drums. Anyway, these are just really cool records, and again, they're impulse releases. She made several. And these two are really good, man. So, and you know, you go out and you find these, they'll probably have them at your shop if they have anything on the Impulse label. And they'll probably be like, you know, between 15 and 25 bucks each. I think I paid about 15 or 20 for these, you know. So, you know, in terms of bang for buck, it's good stuff. It's time for me to hype this band again, actually. Fucking Gandhi. Look, I went on this big thing like maybe a year ago or something when I first got these records. I'm actually going to put it on. And like, it sort of started out as a joke. Like, what's the worst band name? And Gandhi is definitely high on the list. I mean, I don't think it's as bad as Bashful. I mean, that's always like the one to beat. Actually, you know something? Gandhi might be as bad as Bashful. I need to think about that. But Bashful is a terrible, an absolutely terrible name for a band. And so is Gandhi. Especially spelled wrong, although I guess it's the guy, so maybe that's how he spelled it. On the other hand, they're German. I never met a German named Gandhi. So, yeah. This is like a classic German album title too, Grateful Message. Like that's the sort of album title that a native English speaker could never come up with. Because it doesn't quite make sense. You know what I mean? It's like, you think you know what they're getting at, but Grateful Message, the words just kind of don't belong together that way, you know, and it's hard to sort of put your finger on exactly why, but that's just how it is. So yeah, we're going to start this bad boy off. This record kind of loses a little bit of its momentum after the first few songs, and it's still fine, you know, it still plays in that sort of 7 out of 10 realm, right? But the first couple songs on this, I think, are just fucking fantastic. The first one's corny fantastic, and the second one is just like batshit fantastic. After this fucking intro, which maybe I should skip past. Yeah, I'm going to skip past the intro because I don't want this video to last forever. I want to touch on these too. Here's another one I hadn't pulled out in a while. And a lot of the best like Russian records were sort of in the post-Soviet labels, like you know, like Varvar. I think that one was basically private. I don't remember, but there was like oh, I can't remember any of them now. Something about Death is one of the labels. Anyway, the Melodia stuff can be a little bit more sort of pedestrian, but this one's still a Melodia, and this is great. And they're called Galactica. And it's 1989. I know you've got your Melodia labels on there. Kind of a lame cover. You know. I guess it's kind of interesting as far as the layout, but I wouldn't call it great. Also not a whole lot. But this record is just weird. I mean, it rocks, but the guy, like, he has like a normal singing voice, but on some of the songs he'll sing like with this sort of like deep, like type of sound. And it's fantastic, man. Like, it's really unique in a way that, well, the sort of way that's really what I look for, you know? I mean, anytime I get a record, I want to find out what's unique about it, you know? Even if I know something is like something else, you know what I mean? It's not like I've got a problem with rip-off bands. But yeah, these guys sound, you know, like they have their own thing going on, you know? A couple others I think I haven't really talked about. I call this Ramses record. It's really not that great. The main reason I'm bringing this up is because this one's rare, and like I want to encourage you to not spend a whole lot of money on it. If you get it cheap, you put it on while you're cooking, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it, you know. But it's barely a metal record. It's more sort of a hard rock record. You know, maybe in Europe what they'd call hard and heavy. But yeah, I mean, the fact is they look a lot more like a 80s metal band than what they sound like. Incidentally, for some reason, a lot of the copies of this out there seem to have been water damaged, so you can probably see it on this one. You know, that just kind of comes with the turf on some of these old titles. I know the Liquid Earth record, like every copy is water damaged too. But I don't have that one. I have to watch Alan's channel to see that one. Let's Talk Metal, that would be. Go subscribe if you're not. Yeah. Anyway, it's an interesting record. They're from Mexico. If you're just sort of curious to hear some more shit from Mexico, you know, they're kind of on the bigger side, I suppose, as Mexican bands go. But like that band Megaton that I was talking about a couple weeks ago blows the shit out of the water and like with such ease. Yeah, so don't get suckered on this one. You can get suckered on this one though. Fucking Valor. Fight for your life. I put a friend of mine locally onto this recently. And he was looking at it. He was like, I don't know where to start with that cover. And I said, I know where to start. Start with the fact that it's drawn in colored pencil. See that shit? Total colored pencil. This record's great. It's a little bit underproduced, which makes it sound a little bit amateurish. But the songs rock, man. The singer isn't all that strong. It doesn't have a lot of pop. But the songs are good, man. You like sit back and you take this in and it's good. You know what I mean? And Burn is really creepy. Like with this whole thing about like how you're gonna go to hell if you don't like find Jesus and shit. Like, you know, it certainly makes some of us uncomfortable with these sorts of bands, but because you know they meant it. Slayer was fucking around, but these guys meant it, you know. Anyway, Jesus metal, 100%. Pretty overt, you know, pretty direct. I mean, Jesus, with titles like The Flesh is Weak, Empty Tomb, It's Not Too Late, Accept Him, and then Burn. I mean, yeah, it's not really hard to figure out what these guys are up to. They're from San Leandro, apparently, in California, which is like in the East Bay, sort of going south a little bit. So yeah, same part of the world as Metallica, man. So if you like Metallica, you need to check out Valor. No, I wouldn't necessarily say that. But this is great. Also, this song is great. Like that dirgy pace and that weird scream. And you think there's going to be some like epic thing, right? The song is called The Way I Am. This doesn't sound like a song called The Way I Am, you know? I suppose the last one kind of sounded like Chilly Winter Nights. I can sympathize on that anyway, because I mean, some of us moved to the south for that reason, right? It's like 90 degrees outside right now. Yeah. Gandhi's fucking fantastic, though, I'm telling you. The first record is nowhere near as good as the second one. The one that has, like, the blue cover and the little Gandhi on it. That one, you know, you can enjoy that one, too. That's a fine record as well. But this one, when this one's good, this one's fucking genius. What else do we have? I actually pulled out a couple early 70s things. Blood Rock. It's funny, Blood Rock seems like such a big band by my standards. Yeah, it's a great band. I actually found out about these guys because I was in a group in high school where part of the school thing is they would go and like record a tape in like a professional studio. It was kind of part of the thing, you know, it was a jazz choir. Anyway, at the studio, they had a bunch of records on the wall that they produced, and I saw this and like the next two Blood Rock records, actually the next two in the live one, and I'd never heard of it before, but I was like, what the fuck is that? I need to hear that, you know what I mean? So I kept an eye out for it. When I found it, I was like, oh shit, yeah, it's coming home. So I've like owned all the Blood Rock records, and they sound super dated, you know? But the songs still rock, the writing is good, it's delivered well. If you, you know, this is like, it's meatier than like Budgie. If you're like, yeah, I just been listening to Budgie, I want to hear something a little bit meatier, and Bull Angus isn't quite there, that's when it's time to reach for the Blood Rock, man. Fucking great band. I actually pulled this out. I was telling someone that I thought, like, Blood Rock sounds like what I wish Grand Funk sounded like. And I was like, well, I'm going to have to, like, test that hypothesis a little bit. And, so I pulled this one out. And yeah, man, I mean, I could say a lot of nice things about this record, but at the end of the day, there's just kind of something missing, you know what I mean? It's a little bit boring. It's not bad, but it doesn't really rock all that hard. And, I don't know, man. I don't really understand why these guys got so big, you know? I think I hear what's going on in there. I don't think it's like that kind of a disconnect. And speaking of old bands, actually, too, the other thing that's like a dumb thing, this is a really, bearing it deeper in on purpose, this is a genuinely dumb thing that people say sometimes. Like, oh, well, you know, I guess if you don't like that band, it's because you had to be there. You know what I mean? Like, that's the sort of thing boomers will say about older bands. So that actually came up recently, or actually about a year ago at this point, but I was on a little Edgar Winter kick, and I made a video where, like, I was holding an Edgar Winter record in the thumbnail, but, like, and I said, and it was called, like, Can You Handle the Most Annoying Singer in Metal? And it was a different one. It wasn't Edgar Winter, but some guy who obviously hadn't watched the video was like, oh, well, I guess you had to be there for Edgar Winter. And I'm like, dude, here's the thing. If you had to be there to appreciate a band, then the band sucked, right? I mean, there are all sorts of cases, right, where, like, Sonny Rollins is one I think of, where, like, I've heard from people who, like, saw Sonny Rollins a lot of times. I mean, I've read this shit. It's not like I know all these guys, but I've heard it opined that Sonny Rollins was never really captured on vinyl. Like when Sonny was really on, like, those, like, perfect moments never appeared on any of his records. But Sonny Rollins still has some really good fucking records. I like Sonny Rollins a lot, man. I hyped Saxophone Colossus recently. Totally hype Way Out West. Love that record. Or any of the ones he did on Blue Note. Great stuff. First-rate stuff. And yeah, it's definitely possible that, like, none of those are as good as Sonny was live. But, like, the fact that I wasn't there doesn't mean I can't appreciate it, because what's there on record is still fucking fantastic. You know what I mean? So I feel like saying, yeah, you had to be there to really get that. All you're really saying is that the band sucked, you know? There are certain things you might miss. I'm never fully going to appreciate Alice Cooper throwing the chickens in the audience. Like that whole incident. because I wasn't there, right? But that's different. That's not the same thing. I think I understand his record is just fine, you know? And some are good, and most are crap, and some of the crap ones are interesting, but some of them are really just crap. Yeah, that's about it. So what are you gonna close with? You know something? Let's close with this one, because I've been playing this one a lot. I've been listening to this record almost every day, and I've talked about this a couple times too. This Dracula record, this is a Slavic one I wasn't really hip to. You know, I found a lot of this shit myself, but a Nuclear War Now started us doing a series like within the last year or two, and they've redone some like really hard to get shit like Varvar and Ospid and I want to say Front, but I don't think they did the Front record, Mortal Surgery. But this Dracula one I'd never heard of before, and I think these guys are Russian. Yeah. Yeah, Sonata for Satan, you know what I mean? It just sounds grubby. You know what this is really like? This sounds like the early black metal, you know what I mean? Like first wave black metal, like when you hear people like me talk about how like Destruction, Infernal, Overkill was like black metal when it came out, you know what I mean? Or Running Wild, Gates to Purgatory. I know that people disagree with me on that, but that was kind of seen as black metal. Things that weren't, you know, were heavy for their time, but not stylized in the way that black metal became in the 90s, you know what I mean? Now black metal means something really specific. In the 80s, it was really kind of a nebulous term, you know, but there were a few things that you listen to and go, yeah, this kind of sounds like black metal. And I feel like a little bit of a hypocrite after my little thing about thrash versus speed before, but this is kind of why, you know what I mean? Does Merciful Fate fall in that category? From the satanic standpoint, yeah, but from the sound standpoint, absolutely not, you know what I mean? Anyway, this sounds like, it doesn't sound like early Destruction, it doesn't sound like early Creator, it doesn't sound like early Running Wild, it doesn't sound like Venom, but it sounds like evil and kind of like black metal in that kind of a way. The fact they're singing in Russian doesn't hurt. You know, I mean, what sounds better, the Sonata for Satan or Sonata dia Satani? Fantastic fucking record though, and it's still cheap. So hyping that bad boy. This is where Gandhi gets a little bit more pedestrian, by the way. I can still totally hang with this. Don't get me wrong, but this one isn't like holy fuck like the other one was. So. All right, as always, thanks for watching. That was a fun video. You have a whole bunch of 45s here because I was thinking about playing some 45s. We didn't get to it, so I think I even said so at the beginning too. All right, thanks for watching. See you soon.